I want to clear up the conversation around HRT once and for all. There's so much conflicting information out there about whether it's safe or dangerous. So I want to give you the raw stats and safety protocols. I'm not voting for HRT. I'm not voting against it. I'm just someone who looked at the actual studies because you deserve the facts to make an informed choice. So here is every piece of data and research I found on HRT and what to ask your doctor if you decide to go on HRT. So to understand why people are so terrified of HRT today, we have to travel back to 2002 and the Women's Health Initiative study. It was a massive trial tracking over 16,000 women. It was abruptly halted because preliminary data showed that women taking combined HRT, meaning oral estrogen plus an older synthetic progestin, had an increased risk of breast cancer, stroke, heart attacks, and blood clots. So overnight, panic hit. Millions of women threw their pills in the trash. A whole generation of doctors simply stopped prescribing it. But here's what the headlines left out. The findings were applied to women it wasn't really designed to represent. The average age of the women in that study was 63 years old. They weren't looking at women in their late 40s or early 50s just entering perimenopause. They were studying women who were on average 12 years past their final period, many of whom already had an underlying undiagnosed heart disease. On top of that, they used older synthetic oral pills that pass through the liver, which naturally spikes clotting factors. So over the last 2 decades, scientists went back and they reanalyzed the exact same data. Alongside massive new long-term trials like the 2012 Danish study, they discovered what is now called the timing hypothesis. The research revealed that when healthy women start HRT under the age of 60 or within 10 years of starting menopause, the health risks drop dramatically. And let me clear up a massive misconception here that keeps so many women suffering. You do not have to wait until your period stops completely to start HRT. If you are in perimenopause, you are already safely within that optimal treatment window. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, breast cancer. So this is where the 2002 WHI headlines scared the world. That 2002 study reported a 26% increase in breast cancer risk. But that number represents relative risk, not the actual risk to you as an individual. So when you look at the absolute risk, so the actual risk to you as an individual, the statistical landscape shifts. So in a group of 1,000 women who are not taking HRT, about 24 of them will naturally develop breast cancer over a 5-year period. So in the 2002 study, using older synthetic progestins, that number went from 24 cases to 29 cases over 5 years. So that means combined HRT with older synthetic progestins carried an absolute risk increase of 5 extra cases per 1,000 women over 5 years, about a 0.5% population increase over that 5-year treatment window. But here's a game changer, right? Modern research discovered that 0.5% risk was almost entirely driven by those older synthetic progestins. When scientists look at modern micronized body-identical progesterone, which matches what your ovaries naturally produce, large observational studies like the French E3N trial showed a near zero to negligible extra breast cancer risk over 5 years of use. And for women who take estrogen alone because they have had a hysterectomy and don't need progesterone at all, the data actually showed a slight decrease in breast cancer risk. So now beyond breast cancer, what other illnesses are linked to HRT? So it depends entirely on how the hormone enters your body, when you start, and the type you use. Today, modern international guidelines strongly favor body-identical hormones, specifically transdermal estradiol and micronized progesterone. These are much safer and far better tolerated. Now let's break down the 3 most common concerns: blood clots and stroke. This risk is almost entirely tied to oral HRT pills. Modern transdermal HRT, like patches, gels, and sprays, absorbs straight through the skin, completely bypassing the liver. Current evidence shows that transdermal estrogen carries little to no increased risks of blood clots. Now, ovarian cancer. Some massive observational studies hint at a tiny increase, about 1 extra case per 1,000 users, but the data is highly inconsistent and the overall risk is considered low. Uterine cancer. So this only becomes a threat if a woman who still has a uterus takes estrogen entirely alone. Now, here's the ultimate plot twist, right, in the data. Massive long-term data shows that healthy women who start modern HRT under 60 actually have a lower overall mortality risk. Why? Because when started early enough, HRT acts as a massive shield against the actual leading killers of women as they age. So heart disease is the #1 killer of women worldwide, killing vastly more than breast cancer. So when started in that 10-year menopause window, evidence suggests HRT can slash your coronary heart disease risk by 20 to 50%. Now, osteoporosis, right? When estrogen drops, women can lose up to 20% of their bone density in just the first 5 years of menopause. HRT is one of the most effective tools stopping that menopausal bone loss. Another one is colorectal cancer. Women on combined HRT actually had a significantly lower risk of developing bowel cancer. Now, whether you take HRT or not is a deeply personal choice. It is absolutely not a one-size-fits-all solution. Personally, I've always preferred to lean heavily on nature and lifestyle first. And the truth is, many women do fine without HRT, finding that targeted natural remedies, solid nutrition, and stress management are completely sufficient for them. But over the last couple of years, I've met and spoken with so many women who are deeply struggling, women who have dialed in their health habits but still feel completely lost, exhausted, and in some heartbreaking cases, experiencing severe, overwhelming emotional distress. Seeing that level of suffering really challenged and expanded my perspective. And whenever I hit an intellectual crossroad like this, I like to look back at our history. So what did women do in the ancient world? Well, biologically speaking, far fewer women in the ancient world lived into their 80s and 90s, like we commonly do today. That means that modern women now spend up to a third of their entire lives in a post-menopausal state. So we're essentially asking the female body to live and thrive for decades with drastically lower estrogen levels than previous generations ever had to navigate. Because we are living so much longer, some women truly need that extra physiological safety net to protect their brain, their bones, and their quality of life. So why do some women try HRT and instantly get weird body changes, brutal side effects, or feel like it's not completely working? So more often than not, a doctor has prescribed a starting dose that is way too high, shocking the system. The golden clinical rule is to start low, monitor your symptoms closely over 2 to 3 months, and adjust slowly under medical supervision. But you also have to understand, right? HRT does not work in a vacuum. Your daily lifestyle habits act as a direct multiplier for whether this treatment is safe or dangerous. Drinking just 2 alcoholic beverages a day increases your breast cancer risk by about 5 extra cases per 1,000 women. Obesity carries an even higher risk, adding around 24 extra cases per 1,000 women. Combined with oral HRT, smoking damages blood vessels and triggers clotting. So if you smoke and take oral pills, your risk of a stroke or blood clot skyrockets. Plus, smoking forces your liver to break down estrogen faster, meaning you'll need higher doses just to get some relief. Another one is chronic stress and poor sleep. So being in a consistent fight or flight state floods your body with cortisol, and cortisol actively blocks your hormone receptors, making it feel like your HRT isn't working at all. You might think you need a higher dose, but what you actually need is to calm your nervous system so that the estrogen can actually do its job. With that being said, HRT is absolutely not an option for everyone. So medical standards say you should not touch hormone therapy if you have a history of active breast or uterine cancer, unexplained vaginal bleeding, active blood clots, a history of stroke or heart attack, or severe liver disease. If you decide you want to try it, modern research gives us a clear safety protocol. Demand body identical options, specifically transdermal, estradiol, and micronized progesterone over older synthetics. Stick to transdermal methods, so patches, gels, or sprays to bypass the liver and eliminate blood clot risk. Start with a low dose first, so track your symptoms and adjust slowly and ruthlessly protect your lifestyle. Now, to make this really easy for you, I've put together a free cheat sheet that you can find pinned in the comment section below, and it maps out the exact risks and benefits and safety protocols plus giving you the specific questions to ask your doctor. I'd love to hear where you're at with this. Have you tried HRT? Were you scared off by those older headlines? Or are you managing through lifestyle alone? Let me know in the comments below. And now, if you want to know the exact daily lifestyle habits that lower menopausal symptoms and make HRT more effective if you're on it, watch this video next. See you in the next one.